Hello again everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Avro RJ from our friends at JustFlight. So here she is, long anticipated. Those of you who are the regional pilots amongst us in the community will be no doubt really excited for this. And we're going to have a look in a preview video across the next few minutes, so a little hop down to Jersey out of London City with this, the RJ100 and the British Airways City Flyer livery as well. They've taken quite a lot of learning from their previous products, certainly the 146 and the F28, and they've actually made a lot of improvements and put what they've learned into action on this aircraft. So really exciting, and straight away those PBR textures and the decals, the liveries, everything look really superb on the outside. A couple of different variants available for us: the Avro RJ70, the RJ85 and this, the RJ100. And with that, over 25 high quality liveries are included, including this one here as well. Basically representing the vast number of RJ operators from around the world that the real aircraft had. We can dive into the cabin and see already the improvements in contrast to the 146. Much nicer, crisper details in the cabin environment here. The music playing off in the background, that's something from the F28 that we've enjoyed, in fact. And customizable lighting, which you can control in the cabin area by the front of the aircraft. All the lights work, so the no smoking signs and the seatbelt signs illuminate on the aircraft depending on the state that they are in. And it's fairly easy setting custom views because of the ability to walk around the cabin. We'll pop the flight deck door closed though. That mutes the music in the cabin, so it's a nice properly simulated ambience. The coffee machine in the front galley works as well. You can put that on brew if you wish. And straight away we've got some differences already with the aircraft, a little bit more of a glass cockpit. Mostly though still familiar in design for the 146 as well, so the overhead panel looks very familiar in that sense. With a couple of tweaks to the logic, because this aircraft has things that the 146 doesn't. For example, auto spoilers. That's a function on this aircraft that we might see when we touch down in Jersey. Initially though, we're going to turn our attention to the EFB, and we're going to go straight to OFP, and it'll allow us to put in our SimBrief username like so. So that's now putting in our route for today onto the EFB, and we can see the METARs, and we can get the flight plan sheet ready to go on the output page. The map's pretty good, something that's carried over from other aircraft that they've created, and charts now. You've got en route charts and airport charts that will give you the Navigraph functionality that a lot of us really enjoy, and that's got a pretty fab night mode attached to it as well. VFR, world map, IFR, so on and so forth for lower and higher altitudes. On the aircraft tab, it's going to allow us to load in our SimBrief payload, so we're going to import, and we now have refueling and loading options down here. So we're going to press start refueling and start boarding, and it's going to simulate that boarding process. Now if we use GSX, then we can actually kind of sync that in by looking at the cogs, and you can turn GSX handling on, for example. If you want various different options enabled or disabled, this is where you would do it. On your maintenance tab, you've got a lot of different failures that you can arm, you can set timers for, and next to that you've got a pushback system feature within the aeroplane as well. Now before we go much further, it's worth mentioning about the release date and the price. So they're going to aim for a release for this product somewhere between the 7th and the 14th of November 2024. And the price that they're going for is £52.49, which roughly equates to about €65 or $70 US $69.99 US. If you have the 146 Professional though, like I know a lot of you do, you get a 20% off discount, which is pretty cool. And there's also going to be a 146 Professional and RJ Professional bundle available if you wanted to purchase both as a new customer, and the price will therefore amount to about the same as well. SimBrief route imports. Now, unfortunately this bit is a little bit archaic. You need to generate your route on SimBrief like you would normally, and then from what I can tell, from what I've read, you then have to download the .root file, put that into a work folder within the Sims directory for this aeroplane, and then you can load in your company route. If not, you have to generate the route and add it all in yourself. Now on the glare shield you might notice a couple of different things as well. MLS being one and VNAV being one. Now in the real aircraft they were put in there because the microwave landing system was potentially going to be a newer, better version of ILS, but it never actually kind of happened. And VNAV as well, albeit now routinely used in modern airliners. This aircraft had it before it was really kind of used as widespread as it is today, so they added it into the aircraft in case they wanted to put in a coupled VNAV into the autopilot in future. But 30 odd years later, since the original aircraft rolled off the factory line, it's still not a function of the aircraft, but the buttons are there. Now what you could get potentially is an advisory VNAV, and that's because some operators put that in. So it's similar to the CRJ where you get the advisory VNAV ball telling you your descent profile. It's kind of similar to that. Now differences wise, the IRS alignment knobs are to the right of the first officer's yoke, easy to miss. They're over there. You've also got some extra switches and modes on the overhead panel, and some extra digital displays like the pressurisation panel there, which ideally you just leave in automatic. Right, so we've got the APU fired up, we're going to get rid of the chocks, get the engine started, then we're going to part 09 up the Thames for a little flight to Jersey on a test hop. So in relation to the aircraft's new soundscape, there are improvements that they've made comparable to the 146. They've improved lots of different sounds, from avionic fans through to system tests, flight deck air, logic, adjusted engine and APU sounds, music in the back as well. And as we briefly kind of joked earlier, depending on whether that door is open or closed, it decides the level of volume in the cabin and how much you can hear that music there as well, which is pretty cool. Now something else that we're going to do today is a flap 33 takeoff. It's a unique capability of the RJ. For the 85 and 100 variants. We're in the 100 variant, as we said at the start, and it basically allows us to take off with full flaps on shorter takeoff distances, but we then get the drawback of pretty poor climb performance, and they've simulated that capability in both of those two variants, along with with tweaks and improvements to the flight model itself as well. So we're going to set flap 33. We'll briefly watch them extend. We'll nudge the power just to get us rolling. We go full left on the aileron, full right on the aileron. We can go fully back forwards and make sure we've done all of our control surface checks. A couple of different changes as we taxi out. So we've got pressure panel down there as well. We've got the flat placard to allow us to set our speeds nice and easily. Make sure my Q&H is set. Silly me. And that thrust modulation system has now been replaced with a TRP, a thrust regulation panel or something similar to that, with some simpler modes effectively. We're going to use full length on 09, and we're going to depart. We're going to use level change mode for the climb and vertical speed mode for the descent, in effect, to keep it nice and simple. Now we know we're going to have that slightly worse climb performance, unfortunately, as well. but flaps all the way down to 33. And it's set 116 of V2 on the bug. Still a clunky cabin, so all the way up here you've got strobe lights and all that sort of stuff above. And don't forget to advise the crew as well to trigger the other events throughout the journey.
Cabin is secured for departure.
Hey, good. Lining up. I'm sure I'm going to make loads of mistakes throughout this. It's been a very long time since I flew the 146, so incredibly rusty with an aircraft that I used to be quite familiar with. So hopefully you don't mind too many errors here and there. Use as much of this as we can. And the other thing this aircraft has is autothrottle. Part brake set. It's worth mentioning that you need to set the keybind of autothrottle toga as a control assignment. Now I've got that set on my Honeycomb Bravo to a little red button on the throttles. Either that or you can click the hidden click spot which is just there below that little DME word. Otherwise you've got to press those two toga buttons on the front of the throttle, which for in real life is quite a natural position for your hand, but in flight sim not so much. Okay, so power brakes on, off, sorry, we're going to hold it on the brakes, and we're going to gradually advance the throttles towards takeoff power, and as we get there, we're then going to press toga.
Check thrust. Airspeed alive. Thrust set. 80 knots. Go. Rotate. Positive climb. Gear up selected.
Alright. So, nav 1 autopilot engage. So, on the departure there I had a config warning. I had not quite got my takeoff trim set. There's little things like that you forget when you're flying these aeroplanes, but you can see there that that system is therefore simulated, which is pretty good. And the glass cockpit controls, you've got the range rings down here, so it's currently set to 10 miles, and bearing set to waypoint. You can move them between ADFs, VORs, depending on what you want to track and tune for as well. Now back when the 146 Professional got launched, I'm pretty sure this was actually one of the first routes, if not the first route I did. So it's nice to revisit with this more modern version of the same kind of jet. And it's great to see how JustFlight have progressed with the product line over the last couple of years, with improving into the RJ now with that more modern avionics system. The similarities between the two types, they do share a type rating, means that it is easy to kind of learn, albeit, like I do, I probably knock off a fair bit of rust. Certainly the auto throttle system and the automatic pressurisation system makes this a lot easier to deal with and manage, and you can actually just kind of focus on enjoying and flying the flight instead. And the glass cockpits make things a little bit more comfortable as well. So as we level off now in the cruise, when we were flying the 146, we would manually be setting those throttles to try and capture the speed that we want to cruise at. This aeroplane with an auto throttle system is doing it for us. So it's gone from being very resource intensive and demanding of the flight crew to a bit more of a relaxed environment where you can manage the systems, monitor everything, but also enjoy the views around you as well. So all round, so far, big improvements and a nicely impressive add-on. Whether you've got the 146 or otherwise, actually this is a pretty decent aeroplane at a good price with the level of detail but complexity with the older systems that they have simulated, not so much the modern avionics that we're used to. So there's a lot to kind of enjoy and immerse yourself in with this aeroplane. Now, we mentioned at the start of the video auto spoiler system that this aircraft has. And just like the real aircraft, the RJ Professional from JustFlight has the auto spoiler system simulated, and that automatically deploys the lift spoilers upon touchdown or after an aborted landing. To make sure that the automatic deployment does work, then the aircraft must be on the ground with the auto spoiler, yellow lift spoiler and green lift spoilers on the overhead panel switched on, and the throttles are idle. The position of the spoiler lever in the flight deck does not actually affect the auto spoiler logic, and the air brake itself is not actually linked to the position of this handle. So as we cross that threshold, we extend the air brake out. When the engines are set to sort of idle throttle and we touch down on the ground, the automatic lift spoiler system should kick in for us. It's also got a flap trim compensation system fitted, and that decreases the elevator trim by around 1 unit of nose down when the flaps get extended from 0 to 18 degrees. And conversely, the other way around, it increases the trim nose up by the same amount when we're, say for example, taking off going from flap 18 to 0. And that's designed to reduce the control inputs required to counteract the difference in pitch as the flaps get moved to either the 0 or the 18 position. On the ground, or the autopilot engaged though, systems get inhibited. The click spot to hide the tablet is down in that little placard down there as before. And as we said at the start, it does work with GSX as well. And the random failures you can set to real, low, mid or high. High failures is basically a failure is going to occur every 30 minutes to 2 hours, mid every 2 hours to 5 hours, and so on. And we've, as we saw at the start during the takeoff and the initial climb, we had those call-outs. During the approach we should get the same kind of call-outs as well. The localizer captured, glide slope alive, glide slope captured, so on and so forth. We should get some of the shout-outs during the landing roll. Now if you have a Navigraph subscription, you can update your nav data in this aeroplane with that as well using the Navigraph Hub desktop app, and you'll just need to look for the JustFlight RJ Professional box there. Initially it'll say install, if not it might say update. For example, if you've already done that and you want to update each AirRack via the hub. It's also got an air stairs accumulator, so it's in the tablet. I'll just bring it up. There's an option there at the top in the middle, air stairs accumulator. Now what that does is it simulates the system. If I just head out the flight deck here, got to click the latch to unlock and then walk out. It stores hydraulic pressure in the air stairs. Previously with the 146, once they were down you needed to engage, I think it was the yellow hydraulics system in order to bring them back up again. Now the air stairs accumulator is a system that's designed to store some of that pressure in the system to allow, I think, up to 2 retractions of the air stairs without the actual yellow line being active, which is quite a cool little feature. And you can arm and disarm doors as required as well. If you're flying into LCY, then to the right hand side of the gear lever you've got the steep approach button, and you can change your flap landing from 33 to 24. If you are going to do a flap 24 landing, then you need to ensure that mode is selected there. If you're going to do a steep approach, for example into London City, then you must make sure your steep approach system is armed as well, and that's going to then tell the aeroplane that you're basically going to be flying a much steeper approach than what it might otherwise expect, and it'll inhibit some various warnings and things for you. So we're going to select the landing altitude of 300, that's as close as we can get on the pressure panel there. But it's in automatic and it will deal with the rest of it for us. Much like the 146, the descent performance is pretty good with those big spoilers that come out of the rear, the clamshell below the tail. It can basically drop like a brick if it wants to, which is quite cool. But handling wise, seems very nice actually up to this point. We've got to get her on the ground so far. The LNAV, the FMS has been quite easy to set up, the autopilot quite logical, quite easy to use. The pressurisation panel is intuitive, the TRP is easy as well to kind of follow on and use. And actually, across the board, some big improvements comparable to the 146 that brings this aircraft into a slightly more modern package for avionics for us to make use of and enjoy in the sim. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on the descent into Jersey. I'll see you guys on the approach.
Speed checked. Gear down.
Cabin is secured for arrival.
So I've spent the last couple of minutes just
Glide
bringing us
slope
onto the
comes in.
approach there. Glide slope's now alive, and I've done it early just to so I kind of give myself a bit of time, as it's been a while since I've flown one of these. Get it nice and settled into the approach. All round quite an impressive aeroplane. Handles quite nicely. The auto throttle definitely makes life a bit easier. Just going to bring us to final approach speed. Now set 126 plus 5 just to be on the safe side. There's the runway.
Speed checked. Flaps 33.
Set. It's flying the ILS really nicely as well, actually. We've got a 12 knot headwind predominantly, but with slight elements of crosswind, with it backing and veering on final, so doing a pretty good job of holding it at the moment. You can see that slight crab that we've got going on. And if you're familiar with the 146, you're going to have absolutely no problems with this. You're going to have a blast, in fact. It's going to be really good. So, again, being not particularly familiar with this, just going to disable the auto throttle and take over myself, and autopilot off. Not sure if you should disengage the auto throttle or not on final, so
500.
I've done it to be safe. And flies really nicely at slow speeds with these flaps extended, actually.
Glide slow.
Change of gust there, so just giving us a bit of sync, I think.
100.
Air brakes
All
out.
good.
50. 40,
Air brakes.
30, 20,
Holding the flare.
10,
Ground angle.
Remember there's no auto
Spoilers
brake.
yellow and green. Brake pressure checked.
There's the lift spoilers automatically deployed for us.
60 knots.
And just let it gently come off the brakes. So, that auto spoiler retraction, we can now close the speed brake, but you'll see there the spoilers remain out until we come down to about 15 knots like so, and then they fold away. Again, another feature of this aircraft, is quite new in comparison to the 146. Slightly off the edge of the centre line there, but otherwise not too bad for a first attempt. And we can bring all those flaps up and vacate. So share your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this upcoming RJ Professional from our friends over at JustFlight. I think they've done a really nice job of creating a more modern version of the 146. And hopefully you guys think the same too, having watched this video. Hit like, hit subscribe, and check out the links in the description for the video for the JustFlight website, and you'll be able to monitor that for release. But in the meantime, as always, thank you very much for watching. Get past those super bright wigwags, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks for flying.